Welcome to the Financial Armor Show. My name is Brad Cooper, the host of your show and the president of Cooper Financial Investments. And I want to welcome my amazing co-host, Tony Shore. How are you doing today, Tony?
I am so good, Brad. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes.
I've had a really good week. I've been keeping really busy. It's just been crazy, going. But I did get a chance to take a little time off this past weekend and go to the
Great.
county fair with my wife. And we met up with our daughter and her boyfriend and my son and his wife. And we all went to the county fair together. And you know what I do at a county fair is what I look forward to is healthy eating.
Yes.
Yes, when you go to the fair, eat healthy. I had some health nuggets, or as they're commonly called, cheese curds. I had deep fried cheese curds,
Oh,
the elephant ears, the corn dogs. I love the
you're
fair.
making me hungry. I can tell you what, you can go to a fair or, some type of, amusement park auction. And when you smell the food, you could just have ate a 5-course meal before you got there. But as soon as you get there,
It's true.
you're hungry. Now,
Yeah.
is the county fair in Minnesota, is that, am I mistaken for the state fair, one of the largest
This
fairs in the
this
country?
The state fair, the
Okay.
Minnesota State Fair is the largest. It's the second largest in the country, but only because the Texas Fair
Yes.
has more days, but we've actually had record attendance days. So,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, we've had days with 200 plus thousand people. Uh,
That's
Over
crazy.
200,000 a day typically go to the Minnesota State Fair. But this fair was the county fair. But county
Okay.
fairs in Minnesota are a kind of a
Pretty
big deal
large too,
too.
I
It was
bet.
packed. It was packed, and the Washington County Fair, it was packed, and it's a good fair. We had fun. They have a pretty big midway and a lot of food vendors and a lot to see
Oh,
and a lot of animals. And you have to hit the cow barn and the sheep
yes.
barn and the hog barn and all that. We saw llamas and sheep and had a lot of cows, chickens.
Oh,
So yeah, it's fun. We love
how fun. Something you won't see in Arizona in August
it.
is an
Right.
outdoor county or state fair. I can assure you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
it's
think,
a little too hot there probably for
but
fair.
wow, a lot of fun. Brings back many memories from being brought up and living in the Midwest, and
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah, busy, busy, busy. Every time I, talk to someone, it either comes out of my mouth or I hear it. You know, one of the biggest myths and lies I think I've ever been told years ago, Tony, when I was much younger,
Mhm.
about a year or two ago, of course. No, as you get older, things slow down. You're not as busy. I completely disagree with that. I was
Yeah,
just
that's
talking to my mom the other day. She is mid 80s, and she said it doesn't slow down, Brad.
no.
It just continues
No.
to keep busier and
Right.
busier and
I
busier.
know a lot of people, and you who work with people who are
Yes,
headed into retirement or in retirement a lot, you probably see this when people get to retirement, they think I'm going to have all this spare time, but a lot of them end up busier than they were during their working years. It seems
right.
like they have more going on or they keep busy, which is a good thing, I guess.
Yeah, I just, I'm not going to mention names, but
Right.
a friend of a friend in the Midwest retired after 35 years at being at her same job. She really didn't have to work because they had plenty of money, but she retired. And 3 months later, she went back to work full time. And here's the reason why. When she retired, all of her children decided, hey, mom can be the full-time babysitter of about 8 children, all under the age of 10.
Yep.
And she loves her grandchildren, but she couldn't keep up with it. It was too much work at home. So she went back to work and now is getting paid.
I knew someone who went back to work because they said it was less stressful than their retirement
Boy,
schedule.
so true. You
Isn't
know,
that funny? Well,
and
it depends. If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, as I always say.
and I'm very blessed, Tony, because I feel that way. I get asked almost daily, if not weekly at least, what's your exit strategy? When are you going to retire, Brad? And I tell them this, and I strongly believe this more so today than ever. Unless something health related or death happens, I'm not going to retire. Will I slow down? Absolutely. What I do now is uh, I'm one of the most fortunate, lucky, blessed people you'll ever meet as far as getting to sit down and visit with some of the greatest people, clients that anyone could have.
Yeah,
And
you love helping people.
oh, it's great. And not only that, Tony,
It's
I get
rewarding.
help from them. I learn just as much because I realize the older you get, you've experienced life, you have wisdom.
Yeah,
And I try to remember that God gave me 2 ears and one mouth so I can just sit back and absorb just as much from my clients as hopefully as they receive from me. But,
that's a good
you
way
know,
to look at it.
and really, that ties a lot into what we're talking about today, Tony,
Yeah.
your retirement checklist.
Okay.
And there's a top 10 checklist I just read and really got excited about covering today from Kiblicter magazine. Is an article titled A 10-Year Checklist for Retirement Planning. And this may be a little bit of overlap of what we talked about in previous shows, but information worth repeating and new
Yes.
information as well. But just starting out, number one, this year, the IRA and 401k contribution limits is $30,500 for a 401k and $8,000 for an IRA outside of work.
Hmm.
So what that means is if you're still working and you're contributing to a 401k, in most cases, I would recommend a 401k Roth instead of traditional 401k, unless that's your only option. You can contribute up to $30,000,
Wow.
which is quite a bit of money. Or if you don't have a 401k, there are traditional IRAs, which the limit is now 8,000. Of course, there's other types of IRAs and retirement plans that we get into discussion with people still working, maybe self-employed, small business owners. So that's a big thing that you want to be aware of. And at the very least, if your employer, Tony, matches 2%, 3%, part of what you're putting in, definitely put in what they're going to match and get that free money.
Yeah.
Don't lose out on that.
Yeah. Well, you definitely have to take advantage of the match, right? I mean, that's really, you'd be leaving free money on the table, and that would be crazy. You don't want to do that. It'll help your retirement, and that match money grows, and the compounding interest is important there. So you've got to start planning though ahead of time for
Right.
these things, and like whether or not you want a Roth or a traditional 401k, a Roth or a traditional IRA, things like that. So that's where you come in, and that's why you do what you do, and that's why people come to you, and you've helped so many people figure these things out ahead of time. And just make sure you're contributing enough to get the full match, though, at your
Ab-
employer, right?
Absolutely. And, the next thing on the list, Tony, which is so important and overall, in our industry, I think our industry does a poor job as far as when you're approaching retirement, especially when you're in retirement, is fine tuning and looking at the allocations you currently have in your retirement plan, whether it's a IRA, a brokerage account, a trust account, a 401k, IRA, it doesn't matter. I bet probably out of every 10 people we sit down with, I bet at least 9 out of 10, regardless of age, especially in retirement, they're taking way too much risk and they don't know it. And
Right.
it goes back to saying, which we talked about before, you just don't know what you don't know. And you're relying and trusting on your financial planner's advice and expertise. And I'm seeing that our industry overall, there's, some good, but overall is doing a very poor job. And it's just going to take that next, correction for the investor, for the client, for the retiree to realize, wow, how did I lose 25%, 40% of my life savings? And this is probably more important now as of the last couple of weeks,
Yeah.
what's been going on in the market.
Yeah. So we've seen some more volatility, some corrections, and then some goes back up, and we'll see what happens, between now and the election, and the economic news more than the election affects
Right.
things. The Fed didn't lower interest rates.
Correct.
Unemployment was a little bit higher than expected, so the market took a dip. But you can't just watch the market every day and make reactionary decisions, right? You don't want to try to focus on, you don't want to make high risk investments to try to make up ground. You want to instead work with a financial professional who's going to help you dollar cost average into the market and set up different things so you're not all at risk, right?
Absolutely. And I get this question all the time when we go through, whether it's days, weeks, or months of the market going up and really going down, and the fear sets in. When I'm out and about talking to friends and other people, wow, Brad, I bet you're busy. I bet your phone is ringing off the hook. Everyone's scared to death. And I could say just the opposite. Why? Because the way that we plan, the way we allocate with safe money, we call it green money, where your principal's protected, managed money, which there is a little bit of risk, but less risk than your average portfolio. And we base your entire portfolio on your risk tolerance, your goals, your objectives. And overall, most of our clients, especially the last couple of weeks, yes, the market's been up and down, but overall, they're still positive in their portfolio.
Yeah.
And they don't have the stress and worry and the sleepless nights of wondering, wow, am I ever going to make up that loss, that I took throughout my lifetime? Or am I going to run out of money?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's the main number one concern. I don't want to run out of money in retirement. You don't want your bank account to hit zero before your blood pressure does, right? I mean, that's what we always
so
say.
true. So
Yeah,
true.
yeah. Our old friend Tom Lowry used to always tell me that.
Yes. Lo- love it. Oh,
I love that guy.
the next thing, Tony, on the list, number 8 is search for money you've maybe forgotten about. And when I saw that instantly, I have several clients I could tell stories about, that one particular in mind. When I first met the couple, they're still working, and they were very worried and stressed out about retirement and thinking we're going to have to work until we're 70 or 75. And they brought in a little bit of information on what amount of money they currently
Sure.
had at that time. I said, well, you're behind. However, there's hope. You're still working. We can catch up. Well, after the meeting went on, and after we did a fact and finding session, I realized this particular client has changed jobs 13 different times in the
Oh
last
my
10 years.
oh my
Okay.
goodness.
All for good reasons,
Yeah.
better offers, more money. But as a result of that, make a long story short, we spent the next 3 to 6 months, and they had to really, lead this search because of privacy matters and them knowing a little bit more where their money was. But they contacted all the companies they've been with. We found, Tony, about 10 old 401k plans.
That they had
Once we
forgotten
found those,
about, that
they
hadn't
forgot
been
about,
moved after they left their jobs, huh?
lost money. And here's the good news of that.
Wow.
Once we found and discovered that money, added that to what they have, they're going to be in a perfect position to retire when they want to now.
Wow.
So that's one good example of just looking for money that you may not have. I have another client that she was taking care of her parents. Parents were aging, dementia, Alzheimer's, and as we were working with them and through the children, we just happened to come across a bank statement that said $600,000.
Oh my goodness.
They got out of the blue from the bank, and two disturbing things. Number one, when I looked at the statement, and they've had this account for, I think, 20 plus years, the rate of return, 0%.
Oh, no.
Okay, so
Can
put
you
the
imagine what the opportunity loss on $600,000 that should have been in the market that whole time would
it
be
could have been
huge.
worth a millions, and
Yeah.
that's number one. Number two, they just forgot it was there. good news is we did get it. Now they've earned really good interest
Sure.
on it. So that's another example of just really going back with your spouse, and time flies. And sometimes we forget of all the career changes and job changes we made, but definitely maybe worth your time.
Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun,
Boy,
right?
just like today, Tony. I mean, oh, and
So
believe it or
yeah, make sure you don't and I've heard you say this before, but if you're no longer working for a company, your money shouldn't be either. So don't leave your 401ks at an old company. That's not good.
no, and
And make sure you check on what accounts you might have, dig around, find those, and then schedule a consultation, a no charge consultation with Brad Cooper, right?
absolutely, just to get a second opinion, a second set of eyes. And one promise we make everyone is you will walk away from our office knowing something new that you never knew before.
Sure.
Because unfortunately, our industry as a whole does not do holistic financial planning, and they don't go out of the way. They don't take the time. And to be quite honest, most of them don't have the knowledge and experience that we have to
Right.
share with them, the important things of retirement planning.
Right. They don't look at the big picture.
No,
They're not all inclusive, looking at Social Security, healthcare costs, minimizing the tax burden, that type of thing. And so if our listeners out there need help with this or want to get a second opinion on where they're at or get a plan in place, all they have to do is give Cooper Financial a call, 888-390-5277. Brad, I know you love to hear from our listeners. That number again is 888-390-5277 to schedule that consultation.
absolutely, Tony. And I love the question. Just one I received this past week, which is a very common question. You mentioned Social Security.
Yep.
And I had a person say, I'm thinking about retiring. I'm 63 years old. Should I file for Social Security when I retire? And I gave them the answer, initial response, and then more clarifications. The
Sure.
same initial response that my CPA always gives me. It depends.
Right. It depends.
But it does depend. But however, there's many different factors whether you should file it, in this case 63, or wait till 65, or wait till 69. There's so many different factors that play into this, and that's where you need to work with a team of people that know Social Security. We have one of the greatest teams of Social Security knowledgeable, planners that help us with this, that will give you all the options and show you how to maximize your Social Security. In this case, this question and answer, after I found out a little bit more information, I found out they had a lot of IRA money, Tony. And through tax planning, Roth conversions, we decided it may be in their best interest to wait till at least full retirement age
Hmm.
to avoid the penalty
Sure.
of Social Security.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, you have to look at all the factors. You have to look at the tax factor, what portion of that could be taxable, and all those things about Social Security, how to maximize it. Everybody's situation is different.
So
And
true.
again, you have a maximization report that you run for people. I think that's great. So, what's next on the retirement planning
Oh,
checklist?
number 7 on the checklist, digging into that nasty B word. And
Uh-oh.
I'm not talking Brad.
You're
I'm
talking
talking
budget.
budget. But I've heard this many times. Either you're going to control your money, or your money is going to control you.
Yep.
So, you know, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet or getting a legal pad, and just make a list of all your expenses, whether they're
Yeah.
monthly, whether they're quarterly, annually, and keep track of those expenses and the income coming in as well. And what we find, Tony, with the majority of our clients, I would say probably 99.9%, once they do retire, and the next 6, 12, 24 months that we follow up with them, they're normally spending less money than they thought they would. they didn't need as much money as they
Right.
thought they would, because yes, there could be some more expenses down the road in retirement that you're not expecting, but overall, most of our clients are conservative and are in a position as of now to have the hope of not running out of money.
Right. Yeah, that's the key. And you want to make sure you have your expenses covered each month in retirement
Right.
since you no longer have that paycheck coming in. And that's what you help people figure out. And where is that money going to come from? How much are you going to have left to do other things? And it depends on each individual person or couple's goals, right? I mean, if they want to buy a $500,000 RV and travel across the country full time, that's one thing. Or if they want to travel to Europe initially, you have to factor that in. And I know that you factor in things like inflation and other things as well. So it really is comprehensive, as you call it, holistic planning. I think that's great.
And you just hit number 6, and
Oh,
that
I
is
did. I didn't mean to
basically no, you did a
steal
good
your
job.
thunder there.
But we kind of led into that from number 7, but just analyzing your overall income, expenses, and as you're saying RV, I'm laughing because I just had this conversation a month ago with a client who is purchasing a large RV, beautiful, and
They're not cheap anymore.
I knew they were expensive, Tony, but
Yeah.
I had no idea. But wow, good for them. I was so happy. So, yeah, there may be some big ticket items that you need to make sure you have the money for in the liquidity. And that's part of the income planning process. I love the report that we have. It's called the Compass, Income Compass Report. I call it an income report.
Sure.
And this is what we do for everyone who comes into our office is basically we'll put your income in there. We'll put your assets and we'll project out very conservatively, what you want and to make sure you never run out of money. And it's a
Right.
very user friendly, clear picture of your personal situation that we keep in our system and we can change every time we get together.
Yeah. Yep. And so, number 5 on the retirement checklist, I think you said that's understanding where money comes from.
Right, money and the ramifications of when to file for Social Security. See,
Ah,
there's a
yes.
lot of overlap, but you know, and this is just what most of our listeners probably are aware of. But if you mess up on Social Security, that could be detrimental. The
Yeah.
dollar amount you receive for the rest of your life. You have a
Yes.
one chance of doing this right. Now, keep in mind, which I don't know if we ever talked about this. Let's say that you just filed for Social Security 9 months ago. You started receiving your checks. Now you're listening to the Financial Armor Show, and we're bringing up Social Security, and you think, wow, maybe I made the wrong decision. Maybe I need a second opinion if I made the right decision of filing 9 months ago. So if you have filed and started receiving Social Security within 12 months, the Social Security Administration will allow you to go back and change
Mm,
that, pay back what you've received, and
right.
defer your filing. So we've had a few people do that, but that is an option that most
Yeah.
people aren't aware of.
Right. That's a good point, and I think that people need to be aware of where their income's going to come from and where it's going. That's a great point. Social Security is part of that.
Right.
But what's next on the list?
4 of the top 10 list is so big. It's probably one of the top concerns that we discuss and everyone has in the country today is, other than market risk and future taxation, it's long-term care. It's
Yeah.
future healthcare expenses. And I shared this, probably several months ago. Fidelity came out with a study about a year ago, and it was an update revision from several years ago, and they said the average American from age 65 to 85, that 20-year span, will pay out of pocket, this is over $260,000 for healthcare expense. In the
Wow.
study, Tony, they said
And
this
that
did not
doesn't include
include,
what Medicare covers, right?
right, long term care.
Or long-term care.
Right. So We have a lot of
Wow.
strategies, which I call non-traditional strategies, because our industry um, will not offer them. And a lot of our industry and a lot of companies will not allow their advisors to even talk about some of these non-traditional strategies that have long-term care benefits, have benefits, built in, that if you had to go in a nursing home or assisted living or in-home health care, that pay out every single month for 5 years. So that is probably one of the biggest conversations we're having on a daily basis with
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah. Well, long-term care is so expensive. My mom is in long-term care and it's about
Right.
$11,000 a month. Now, Medicaid covers part of her bill, insurance
Yes.
covers part of her bill, and then my dad has to cover part of it. So, yeah.
And it's very pricey, and I haven't met someone yet that we've had this discussion with, that's too late to do some planning, because
Right.
maybe they had to put a spouse into, what if we would have met 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Be proactive. Our motto, our approach to planning is, we are hoping for the best, but we're preparing and planning for the worst. So if the
Right.
best happens, praise the Lord. If the worst happens, praise the Lord, because you're going to be protected.
Yeah.
We take protection, we take security very serious with our
That's
clients. And I know, Tony, we're not
huge.
going to be able to get through the other three, but as a summary, just to summarize kind of what
Sure.
the others were on the checklist, is analyze your holdings, whether they're taxable, non-taxable, IRAs, 401ks, and almost every tax expert believes, and I believe this too with all my heart, taxes are going to go up the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And if you have taxable money, IRAs, this is the time to work with a company that will sit down, hold your hand, get their tax people involved, which is complimentary, by the way, and put together a plan to convert your IRAs over the next several years. And there's a very careful way you have to do that to avoid penalties and excessive taxes. And in some cases, Tony, you can do that tax free.
Right. And the number one thing before we go, I'll add, is working with a financial professional who takes the holistic view and is a fiduciary like yourself. And on that note, before we go, Brad, let our listeners out there know how they can get a hold of you to set up that consultation to meet with you and your team.
Great, Tony. You can call us directly, 888 390 5277. That's toll free, 888 390 5277. Or you can visit our website, financialarmorshow.com. Again, that's financialarmorshow.com. Type in, ask your questions, review previous radio shows, podcasts that we have done, and bring your questions in. That's the passion and love we have every week of just responding to our wonderful listeners.
Yeah, that's excellent, Brad. And thanks for a great show. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of the Financial Armor Show with our host, Brad Cooper.
Thank you, Tony.